Raise your hand if you're a Swiftie. Well, I'm not. But with Taylor's recent wedding to Travis Kelce, it feels like you just can't escape hearing all about her. And listen, I don't hate her or anything. In fact, in my younger years, I listened to her music quite a bit. All that to say, I do appreciate her artistry, and truthfully, I find her one of the most compelling pop culture figures of our time. Because Taylor's been able to accomplish something that very few women have been able to do in the music industry. And I find that fascinating. What I find even more fascinating is that you can really follow her career and see this turning point that happened where she really started taking the reins of her life and her business. Incidentally, this all took place around the same time that she released what I found to be one of her most compelling albums, Reputation. I think Reputation is the last Taylor Swift album that I listened to all the way through, and it remains one of my favorites in her discography. And so often when we're talking about Reputation, the discourse becomes about sweet, sweet revenge. But I don't actually think that that's what the album was about. I think it was about something much more interesting. It was about a narrative. Because for years, the public had helped craft this persona of who Taylor Swift was. And the Reputation era was the first time that she cracked that mold and started to step out on her own. I think that's a much more interesting conversation than some ostentatious wedding. So that's what I want to dive into with you today. This is a story about Taylor Swift and how her Reputation era reminds us of the importance of taking authorship of our own life stories. Hey guys, it's Gata and welcome to my channel. This is my corner of the internet where I like to talk about feminine psychology, famous faces, and archetypal patterns that shape the way we move through the world. If that sounds like your cup of tea, I invite you to pull up a chair and join the conversation. Let's just begin at the beginning. Taylor Swift released her debut self-titled studio album in 2006 at just 16 years old. And it feels like from the jump, she was destined to be America's sweetheart. Here was this adorable little country singing girl who wrote her own music from a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania. It doesn't get more Americana than that. Taylor's music centered around what most teenage girls are concerned with at the time: fairy tale romances, first love, and self-discovery. Despite her innocent small town girl public persona, Taylor, her parents, and the entire machine behind her were incredibly strategic in crafting her public image. Taylor didn't just want to sing. She wanted to be a star. And her team knew how to play into the public's sensibility to get her there. Something that I think is important to point out here is that even though Taylor and her team played an important role in crafting her public image, they didn't create her persona alone. Because the public at large was eating this up. In an increasingly raunchy society, here was this sweet, down-home girl that parents could feel good about their young children listening to. That projection of innocence from the public to Taylor Swift played a big role in catapulting her early success. And Taylor's career started skyrocketing as a result of this dance between herself and the public. Her music career fed their love for her, and their love for her played right back into her music. Eventually, that relationship started translating into real success for Taylor. Her debut album ended up selling over 8 million copies, and her follow-up album, Fearless, sold 11 million. Which brings us right to the inciting incident for today's story, the 2009 VMA Awards. At the ceremony, Taylor won the award for Best Female Video for her smash hit, You Belong With Me. This was a huge moment for Taylor. She was decked out in this beautiful, bedazzled dress, hair up, red lip on, feeling herself. And it was her first VMA victory. So she was hyped. Everyone in the audience was applauding this huge moment in this budding artist's career, including the other nominees in the category, like Kelly Clarkson and Beyonce. But not everyone agreed with MTV's choice of a winner that night. Enter Kanye West. Kanye at that point was already known for being kind of an erratic, explosive personality, but he was a visionary, an artist, a creative. So back then, people were more willing to look past those things. He hadn't gone too far off the deep end at that point, so people were able to overlook some of his eccentricities a little more easily. But this is the night that a lot of those tides started to turn for him. Because as Taylor Swift walked up on that stage to accept her award, who should come rushing up but Kanye West? As Taylor was beginning her acceptance speech, basking in the glory of this moment for her, Kanye unceremoniously pulled the mic away from her and said,
"So much for giving me a chance to win a VMA award. Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
He walked off the stage with a shrug of his shoulders to a chorus of boos from the audience. This was a really bad look for him. Here he was taking the spotlight from this young girl. And again, the public already had this perception of Taylor Swift as this young, innocent flower that needed to be protected. In the aftermath of the VMA incident, public sympathy for Taylor explodes. In the court of public opinion, Kanye West was already guilty, humiliating this young girl on what should have been one of the most exciting moments of her life. It's really easy to see that he was in the wrong here, and I'm not here to debate why he did what he did. What I want to focus on is the public's reaction to the whole thing. Kanye's actions cemented Taylor's public persona as the good girl, because when you're actually looking at the situation, she was the clear victim. And that victim narrative worked to her advantage, because the public suddenly became fiercely protective over her and her innocence. And Taylor herself was very wise and played into this perception. On her third studio album, she explores the incident further in a song aptly named Innocent. Taylor was lifted up on this pedestal of protection in the court of public opinion, and the public finally had another sweet, innocent pop girl that they could rally around. So it seemed like everyone was a winner in this situation, except for Kanye West. But here's the double-edged sword to that I don't think Taylor recognized at the time. Even positive narratives are narratives. By nature, they're limiting. She couldn't just be Taylor anymore and explore the reality of being a real person who has highs and lows in life. No, now she had a brand to protect, the brand of the innocent girl. But we've seen this play out with young women in Hollywood so many times. What goes up must come down. And what started off as innocent will eventually be corrupted. So Taylor continues to grow and evolve as a musician and as a young woman. She does the thing that most young women do. She's exploring herself. She's dating people, trying to find her place in the world. But when the public writes a narrative about you, they tend to like you to stay inside of it. And Taylor Swift, being out and about, playing the field like any other woman her age would have been, did not sit right with that public narrative. The conversation very quickly shifted from that Taylor Swift to that Taylor Swift. People couldn't stop talking about her love life, who she was out with, what she was doing with them, her constant referencing exes in her music, which, to be fair, if any of us were writing about our personal experiences, we would probably be talking about personal things. But it got old fast. Eventually, even her success was weaponized against her. People rolled their eyes every time she won another award, criticized what they perceived as lackluster vocal performances, critiqued her lyricism and songwriting abilities. People love building women up until they don't. And those cracks in Taylor's public image during this time period were about to come crashing down in a pretty major way. So during this time period where Taylor is getting her first real public pushback, her and Kanye West have actually managed to somewhat mend their relationship. They'd met on several occasions after the VMA incident, and she was even photographed on the cover of a Vogue magazine wearing a t-shirt from his clothing line. In a really funny callback, Taylor actually ended up presenting Kanye with the Video Vanguard Award at the 2015 VMAs. There, she lauded his artistry and admitted that his College Dropout album was the first one she purchased on iTunes. And Taylor, I will have to agree with you on that. It's a great body of work if you somehow have not heard it before. Everything seemed like it was cool between the two of them. And then came the famous feud. In 2016, Kanye released his album, The Life of Pablo. One of the tracks, Famous, made reference to a certain blonde pop star.
For all my Southside that know me best, I feel like me and Taylor might still have. Why? I made that famous.
Taylor was quick to show her public disapproval for the lyrics on the song. She asserted that the lyrics were misogynistic and disrespectful and that she didn't appreciate being included in the track. Kanye, to his defense, said that he'd called Taylor and gotten her approval for using her in the song. Again, we see this public vitriol with Taylor being painted as the innocent victim and Kanye the erratic artist who can't stop tormenting her. But something had changed since the 2009 VMA incident. Kanye wasn't fighting this battle alone. No, this time he had the support of his then wife, Kim Kardashian. And if there was one thing that Kim was gonna do, it's stand by her man. Seeing the way that her public is bashing her husband, Kim decides that she's gonna take this matter into her own hands. So Kim Kardashian takes it upon herself to post this video of Kanye and Taylor having a phone conversation where Kanye does mention that he was gonna be mentioning Taylor in the song Famous.
Well, is it gonna be mean?
No, I don't think it's mean.
Okay, then let me hear it.
Okay. To all my South Side that know me best, I feel like Taylor Swift might owe me sex.
That's not mean.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this is the thing where I'm calling you because you got an army. You own a country of 2 billion people, basically, that if you felt that it's funny and cool and like hip hop and felt like, you know, just the college dropout and the artist like Ye that you love, then I think that people would be like way into it.
So she posts this video on Twitter with the snake emoji and the hashtag Taylor is over party, which can we talk about how 2016 that is? The internet and the public at large very quickly flipped. I mean, here it was. Kim seemed to have brought receipts that painted Taylor in a less than favorable light. And I wanna know your opinions about this whole situation in the comments below because I think it's tricky. On the one hand, I totally get Taylor's perspective in not wanting to be spoken about, especially in such a public arena in that way. But I also get Kanye's point too. Within the confines of hip hop culture, the word can be used as a term of endearment. And listen, I'm not here to debate whether that's a valid point or not with you, because that's a much larger conversation than what we have time for today. The point is that this issue was complicated and messy. When commenting on the leaked videos from Kim and Kanye, Taylor very famously stated that she would like to be excluded from this narrative. I want to know your thoughts on that too. Do you think that you get to dictate how people perceive you in the story of their lives? Because of course, your life is important to you, but to other people, you're a side character. Do you get to decide how they view you in their narrative? Something I do want to mention here really quickly before we move on, because I don't want anyone coming for me in the comments, is that Kim Kardashian's original video was heavily edited. I'm gonna play a little bit more of that conversation between Kanye and Taylor so you get a better idea of the context of their conversation.
Okay, now what if later in the song I was also to have said, I made her famous? Is that
So did she say that?
Yes, it might have happened.
Oh, God. Well, what am I gonna do about it?
Do the hair flip?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like whatever at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, just you gotta tell a story the way that it happened to you and the way that you experienced it. Like, you honestly didn't know who I was before that. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if I sold 7 million of that album before you did that, which is what happened. You didn't know who I was before that. It's fine.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. It's fun. It's definitely you're ready to trend. That's all I say.
In the call, I wouldn't say that Taylor's giving her approval. I would say it's reluctant acceptance. Like, artist to artist, she understands, listen, you need to tell your story through your lens. What can I do about it if I'm a part of that story? And also, to her defense, Kanye did not actually say that he was going to be calling her a. I also love, because I'm familiar with the song, that in the call, he's like, oh, like halfway through, I'm gonna mention your name. Boy, it's like the second line of the whole thing. And you can tell he's got this sneaking little sparkle in his eye when he tells her, get ready to trend. He knew what he was doing by name dropping her at the very beginning of this song, and in such an incendiary way. I don't know, I feel like I still go back and forth on the whole situation, which is why I felt the need to come and talk to you about it today. Let me know what you think. But regardless of where you stand on the whole issue, the impact on Taylor remains the same. Suddenly, overnight, the public's opinion of her had shifted dramatically. She wasn't the innocent little lamb anymore. She was the snake hiding in the garden. Whether you believe Taylor was right or wrong is almost beside the point, because overnight, millions of strangers suddenly decided that they knew who Taylor Swift was. The proverbial good girl gone bad. And Taylor had to figure out what she was gonna do before it got even worse. I think that this is one of my favorite moments in Taylor Swift's career. One that really highlights her strategic, targeted huntress kind of energy. Because instead of fighting the tides or trying to convince people that they were wrong about her, she did the smart thing and said nothing at all. Taylor virtually disappeared from the public space. Taylor, who had once been known for her high engagement online with her fans, stepped away considerably from her social media accounts. She stopped giving interviews. We even stopped hearing about her dating life, which, if you were around at the time, you know was notable. And I think this silence is one of the most fascinating parts of her career. I think it's incredibly smart and very strategic. Think of being a kid and someone bullying another child at school, or your sibling annoying the hell out of you. What is the key piece of advice that we're all always given in those moments? Just ignore them. I can tell you from my own experiences in the classroom and working with kids, this is one of the most effective psychological tools you can use against someone who's trying to dig at you. Because what anyone wants in that circumstance is a reaction. And by not reacting, you take your power back. And that was the lesson that Taylor was learning. Because let's be clear, I don't think Taylor was hiding from anyone. I think that she just realized the power of not arguing back with someone who's hell-bent on misunderstanding you. But from the ashes of her tarnished public reputation, a new creative expression was starting to take root. The silence only increased the public's thirst for Taylor Swift and her artistry. Where had she gone? What was she doing? And when was she coming back? And Taylor would be back, but in a very different way. It was time for Taylor to take back ownership of her reputation. Taylor broke her hiatus in November of 2017 when she dropped her 6th studio album, Reputation. And the name and the visuals of this project really tell you everything you need to know about it. Gone were the light, fluffy, country and pop bangers that she had built her entire career on. Instead, Taylor was embracing the darkness. She traded pastels, lace, and sparkles for dark, vampy colors, a hardened exterior, tabloids and newspaper clippings that told the so-called story of her life. Remember that snake we were talking about earlier? Taylor took that back too. Thematically, the album also shows a pretty major evolution for her. Gone were the days of her complaining about ex-boyfriends and lost love. Instead, she's grappling with the real issues of fame, her rebirth and reinvention after her public cancellation, finding love and connection in the middle of the chaos, and dealing with the scrutiny of the public at large. I love this album because it feels like Taylor is being honest. Yes, the fluffy fairy tale stuff is nice, but girl, what's really going on beneath the surface? Because I know that it's impossible to reach the level of success she had, even back then, without having a chip on your shoulder about it. Because when your image belongs to the public gets to decide who you are. And I imagine that had to be incredibly frustrating. And Reputation marked the start of Taylor taking that authorship back in her hands. Because this wasn't an album where she was trying to vindicate herself or prove that she was right. She instead made the compelling choice to lean into the narrative that the public had spun around her. You think I'm a snake? Fine, here are snakes. You think I'm a mean girl? Fine, here's a bunch of songs that prove you're right. That's what I think the brilliance is of Reputation. It's not a story about revenge. It's a story about agency, taking the reins back in your own hands. Taylor stopped being concerned with playing the game of public opinion. She started to recognize that her power and sense of self couldn't come from what other people thought of her. It had to start from within. And so she played with it, because why not? If everyone has decided that you're in your villain arc, you might as well have fun with it. Instead of trying to prove to everyone that that's not me, she said, fine. You want to see a villain? I'll be the villain. Fine. You want to see me be a character? I'll be a character. I'll play it better than anyone else has before. That's reclaiming your narrative. That's taking control of your life. That is Huntress energy. As a reminder, the Huntress is all about taking aim at a target and going at it with reckless abandon. And I think that you can see Taylor doing that throughout the course of her career. I think that's just a part of who she is as a person. But like we've talked about before, when the Huntress is so concerned with the opinions of others around her, she loses sight of what her target actually is. And that can lead to some less than favorable results. To me, Reputation marks the start of Taylor feeling like an actual person. This, again, is I think my favorite era of hers because she feels a little crazy and I like it. A little scary, yes, but it feels real. Like any of us could understand these raw emotions that she's expressing if we were put in her situation. I actually think that this public cancellation and the whole Reputation era did a lot to make Taylor Swift feel like an actual human instead of a manufactured product. And everyone in the world seemed to agree too. Taylor's absence created a buzz around the release of Reputation. So when it dropped, it became an overnight success. People were dying to hear what she had to say concerning everything that had transpired in the last year and a half. And again, it was fun seeing this different side of Taylor. It was interesting. When we think of villains, we tend to think of someone that we want to lose. Incidentally, I think it was Taylor's villain arc that helped catapult her to the levels of success that she's seen in recent years. Taylor's career after Reputation has shattered, I think, what anyone expected her to be, except maybe herself. I think this was always the goal. After the success of Walking on the Dark Side and reclaiming her image, Taylor went back to more familiar territory with her follow-up albums, Lover, Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, and even Tortured Poets, which, oh my gosh, I just cannot. Can someone please explain that album to me because it was not made for me. I also somehow forgot about Life of a Showgirl, which I think is really just a testament to how truly forgettable I feel like that album was. Taylor continued to take ownership of her career and persona when she re-recorded 4 of her previously released albums after a dispute with her original record label. Even though she very much maintained this kind of wholesome girl next door image, she was making it clear by her actions and her way of moving through the world that she was not taking from anybody anymore. Something I do find kind of interesting though is that of all the albums that Taylor could have re-recorded, she hasn't touched Reputation yet. And I'm just speculating here, but I don't think that's an accident. I imagine it's a painful period of her life to revisit, but also I don't think you want to mess with perfection. I think that Reputation captures this raw emotion, this nerve that had been struck in her. I don't know if you can get a feeling like that back if you're not in headspace anymore. And look, I don't blame her. Taylor has since moved on to much greener pastures, selling out her record-breaking Eras tour, and recently tying the knot with her beau, Travis Kelce. Don't get me started on that wedding because I have thoughts. But I think this was one of those defining moments for Taylor. This is the moment where she realized that yes, public adoration is lovely, but you don't want to rely on that solely for your sense of self and worth. Because isn't it interesting that she weathered this very public scandal not by fighting back against it, but by letting people think whatever they wanted to. She came back as the villain, but on her own terms, with her own voice and her own creative expression to go with it. Reputation is the turning point where Taylor took back the pen and authorship of her own life. And she hasn't given that pen back since. Regardless of whether you're a Swiftie or not, I think that that lesson is incredibly badass and can teach us all something today. Because just like Taylor used to, so many of us have the tendency to tie our sense of self or worth to the opinions of others. And that doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it's people with the best of intentions, like our friends and family. Sometimes it's people that want to see you be productive and achieve, like your boss. Maybe you even feel trapped within an identity that no longer serves you. Even we everyday people can get trapped in the expectations that the people around us have. How many of you have ever felt like people are judging you based on who you were years ago? Who is it that's writing the narrative of your life? Who's deciding who you are and who you're becoming? Is it your parents? Social media? So many of us are begging to be seen, for people to understand that I've changed since then. But maybe that's not the point that we should be making. I think Reputation still resonates today because every woman knows what it's like to feel confined within the expectations of someone else. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who's written your story up until this point. All that we have is today. And so I think the more powerful question is, who's writing the next chapter for you? Despite the title, I don't actually think that the power of this album was in Taylor rebuilding her reputation. I think what makes it stand out to me the most is that this was the defining moment that she realized she didn't need to prove herself to anybody. She could take authorship of her own life. And whether you consider yourself a Swiftie or not, I hope you walk away from this video remembering this. You don't need to waste your time trying to convince someone else that they've misunderstood you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly sit back and keep writing your story. Taylor Swift is such a great example of a modern woman taking ownership of her life story. But don't get it twisted. Women have been doing this for centuries. If you want to hear a more historical case study of a woman who took authorship of her own life, I think you're really going to enjoy my video on Queen Elizabeth I. So I'll see you over there, or I'll catch you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.